The US side's erroneous remarks distort historical facts, smear China's political system and development path, and interfere in China's internal affairs. China is strongly dissatisfied with and firmly opposes this.
37 years after the Tiananmen Square massacre, old wounds have resurfaced and triggered a fresh diplomatic row, as memory, politics, and historical grievances collide anew on the anniversary. The commemoration has set the two superpowers on a collision course, with the United States and China clashing publicly over how the event should be remembered and what contemporary lessons should be drawn. Following remarks by US Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Beijing sharply condemned the comments and accused the US of interfering in China's internal affairs, framing the intervention as a hostile attempt to rewrite China's domestic narrative. Meanwhile, a US ally and prominent critic of Beijing has challenged Chinese authorities to confront the historical record, urging China to face the truth about Tiananmen rather than suppress discussion or deflect responsibility. China sharply rebuked comments made by US Secretary of State Marco Rubio concerning the Tiananmen Square massacre, accusing him of meddling in China's internal affairs and denouncing the intervention as an unacceptable politicization of a sensitive historical issue. The diplomatic exchange unfolded on the 37th anniversary of the 1989 crackdown in Beijing, a moment that routinely intensifies scrutiny, official statements, and international commentary about the events and their legacy. The events of June 4, 1989 remain a deeply sensitive and heavily censored subject inside China, where public discussion is tightly controlled and official narratives seek to limit remembrance and critique of the crackdown. The 1989 crackdown occurred when Chinese troops were ordered to move into the capital to suppress the student-led pro-democracy protests, an escalation that culminated in a violent clearing of Tiananmen Square and surrounding streets. Those student-led pro-democracy demonstrations had drawn large crowds to Beijing's Tiananmen Square, where a broad cross-section of society joined youthful activists in calling for political reform, transparency, and an end to corruption. On June 3, US Secretary of State Rubio asserted that Beijing's censorship cannot erase the memory of the military crackdown, a statement intended to challenge official suppression of the historical record and to affirm the continuing international attention to the events of 1989. The US Secretary of the State said, and I quote, "Those who sacrifice to uphold their unalienable rights of free expression and peaceful assembly will be vindicated someday," unquote. In response, China's foreign ministry accused the United States of distorting historical facts, criticizing Washington for what Beijing described as a selective and politically motivated recounting of events that ignores context and undermines bilateral trust.
On the political turmoil of the late 1980s, the Chinese government has long reached a clear conclusion. The path of socialism with Chinese characteristics is the choice of history and the people, enjoys broad support among the Chinese public, and has gained wide international recognition. China will unswervingly follow this path and advance national rejuvenation through Chinese-style modernization. No country or force can stop the Chinese people from moving forward. The US side's erroneous remarks distort historical facts, smear China's political system and development path, and interfere in China's internal affairs. China is strongly dissatisfied with and firmly opposes this. We urge the United States to honor its commitment to respect China and the Chinese people, stop stoking ideological confrontation, and cease interfering in China's internal affairs under the pretext of democracy and human rights.
The flashpoint between Washington and Beijing erupted against a backdrop of rising tensions over Taiwan, where recent military posturing and diplomatic disputes have heightened sensitivities and made anniversary remarks more combustible than in past years. Notably, US ally Taiwan used the anniversary as an opportunity to criticize China, with Taipei framing the remembrance as a reminder of the value of democratic freedoms and as a rebuke to efforts to suppress dissent on the mainland. Taiwan's president, Ching seized the occasion to urge China to confront its history honestly, calling on Beijing to acknowledge past actions as a necessary step toward reconciliation and regional stability. Lai argued that a truly great country should not place blind faith in military might, insisting instead that moral authority, respect for human rights, and transparent governance define enduring national strength. The president of Taiwan said, and I quote, "I sincerely hope that China can face up to the June 4 incident of 37 years ago, acknowledge the truth, soothe the pain, and open the door to reconciliation and dialogue," unquote. Remember that China considers self-governed Taiwan to be part of its sovereign territory, a long-standing position that informs Beijing's diplomatic posture, military planning, and regional strategy toward the island. China routinely labels Taiwan's president, Ching, a separatist leader, using the term to delegitimize his government's actions and to justify pressure aimed at deterring moves toward formal independence. President Lai insists that only the people of Taiwan have the right to decide their own future, arguing that decisions on governance and identity must come from democratic consent rather than external dictate. The anniversary once again exposed deep divisions between Beijing, Washington, and Taipei, highlighting how historical memory, competing political systems, and strategic rivalry continue to complicate efforts at dialogue and stability in the region.
$25 करोड़ गरीब गरीबी को परास्त करके बाहर निकले।
For the good of our nation, let's work together and let's truly make America great again.
The fastest news breaks.
Requested PM saying that we will have to speak to Putin and to Zelensky.
The biggest newsmakers.
The relationship with India is probably the most important bilateral relationship the U.S. will have for the rest of this century.
The capital delivered quite an election result today.
Expert analysis.
The million-dollar question today is how to stop this dance of death.
Ground reports.
I'm standing at the crossroad of the Kumbh Mela. Behind me are more than 100 entry ghats.
Long-form interviews.
Exclusionary politics is reflected in Manipur case as well. You don't bother because this is a small state.
Deep dive into burning issues.
It's often said DRC could be the richest country in the whole world. It's because of what sits underneath.
Why exactly did the US topple the Sheikh Hasina government?
HD videos. We don't just break news, we break it down.